there's a great book. It's called The Mom Test. Rob Fitzpatrick did an amazing job. One of my favorite things about this book, in addition to its content, is it's that not thick. It will do a really great job of laying out what you need to do to ask the right questions and to not ask the wrong ones. This is the other place I see this process go wrong all the time, which is that we start to ask leading questions like, would you use my product if... Don't talk about your product. You don't have a product yet, okay? You don't have a product. You don't have a product that anybody would want to buy yet. You want to talk to them about their problems. You want to talk to them about their expertise, understand what they've tried to do in the past to solve that problem. How have they scratched that itch, including not doing anything? And this is another one of those bear traps for founders. They're like, look, nothing like this exists. Nobody's doing anything about this problem. Doing nothing is a solution. So one of the things we talk about a lot when you're starting a company, but particularly in marketing, is that behavioral change is the hardest thing to overcome. Whatever I am doing now, I'm likely to keep doing. We can apply physics here. Inertia is a law within behavioral psychology. Whatever I'm doing, I'm going to keep doing. I may have a bad habit, and those are the hardest to break. And so sometimes we'll see an opportunity. It's like, wow, nobody is doing anything about this. Sometimes that's because doing something about it is more expensive, more time intensive, more emotionally draining than just not fixing it. And so somewhere in the calculus between human behavioral analysis and the P&L, there isn't enough impetus to actually get us to do something. So this is why we want to go back and really understand what they're doing. And if the answer is they're not doing anything, don't go, Eureka, we've got it. Now they're going to buy our product. No. Find out why they're not doing anything. Keep asking questions. Don't start to assume that because you get to a point where you found out they're not currently solving this, that you've struck gold, because oftentimes if they're doing nothing, this is actually harder than getting them to switch from an inferior solution. Right? I tell you this all the time. People who are already doing something along the lines of what you want to sell them are typically better clients, more likely buyers, more likely users than people who are doing nothing. Going from 0 to 1 is a lot harder than going from 90 to 100. I use the example of the Whoop strap that I wear. When they first started that company, they did not target people who were looking to form an exercise habit. They looked at people who were already top performers in their sports and said, how would you like to be 5% better? Now, if you tell somebody who's doing nothing, would you like to be 5% better? Doesn't sound like much of a gain. But if you've been working at this for decades and you know that you're as close as you've ever been, and somebody tells you I can get you 5% closer, that's a big deal. There's also just something to be said for experienced users. And I don't mean like experience with your product necessarily, but we run into this all the time in the startup space where sometimes we're the first professional services people have ever engaged in or had to buy on their own behalf. And they just don't know how it works. They don't know what to expect. Like if I'm going to talk to a consultant, are they going to do stuff for me? Are they going to do stuff with me? How does any of this work? And so when you enter into a nascent market with a brand new idea, oftentimes you're fighting this really uphill curve. And so one of the things that I really try to dig in early on is, in addition to just, is there a problem here? And is there a problem that I feel like I'm well equipped to solve? Is there enough of an appetite within this audience that I'm not going to be fighting some crazy, crazy adoption and behavioral change curve that's going to really negatively impact my startup? So that's one of those things that I'm always looking for, is like, is this too much of a leap? And if so, how do I either change the solution or change the approach, maybe change the funnel, right? If it's something that's really, really different, do I need to educate first? Do I need to go way upper funnel and spend time really helping people to understand, one, that they have a problem, right? So if there's a sales team out there that's like, hey, we always hit our numbers. What do you mean we're inefficient with our time? We always hit our numbers. Okay, cool. Well, would you like to hit bigger numbers? Do you want to sell more? Do you want, right? So you got to dig in and help them understand, like, look, yeah, you are hitting your numbers, but you're leaving 20% on the table based on the fact that you're handling a bunch of admin stuff or bad calls and lead qualification. But you got to dig in and ask those questions. You got to find out, is that actually true? Right? If you find out they only have like a 10% close rate, there's probably room to improve that, right? Or that, 1 out of every 3 calls is an absolute dud and somebody they shouldn't have talked to. Cool. We need to do more lead qualification. But they may not see that as a problem. They're like, 2 out of 3 of our calls are great. Okay, cool. But why waste time on that 3rd call? So it's about really making sure that, 1, they see the problem, they understand the problem. 2, that you are well equipped to help them to solve that. 3, that they are willing to do whatever work there is required to get there. I talk about this a lot in our Getting Customers group that meets on Mondays and Fridays.